Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and today we are going to do a BT token guide for July. People typically like these videos, so basically for those of you new to these videos, what this is basically I create these videos for people who might be coming up or close to 50 BT tokens. Once you hit 50 BT tokens, you can't collect anymore. And as you collect new BT tokens, they do go to your gift box, but then they have a limited time that they expire. So at some point, you got to drop those BT tokens. So every month, I like to just do an updated list of my recommendations of who you might want to use your BT tokens on. One disclaimer I usually say at the beginning of the video is, if you have a character that's a favorite and you want to use them a lot, go for those characters. Don't worry about meta. If you are someone that cares about meta, that's kind of what I'll talk about a little bit in the video, but it all depends on your playstyle and who your favorites are, right? So once again, to me, favorites trump all, even if it's a bad character. Go for them because you're going to like that character and you're going to want to use them. All BT characters are somewhat viable as long as they're characters that are recent, right? So let's go ahead and hop in. I'm going to talk about probably like 9 to 12 characters in this video. Typically what I do is I'll talk about all the characters who BTs will be available on banners during that month, because then you potentially could pull for the LDs. I might throw out a couple characters that are like older characters that are still really relevant for this month. The one thing to keep in mind, if you're going to buy a BT of a character who does not have a banner this month, you need to make sure you have their full kit up to the LD at least. Buying a BT for someone that you don't have the rest of the full kit isn't really worth getting. So keep that in mind as well. So first we're going to talk about some characters that are going to be coming up upon new upgrades in July, and they're going to get banners and things like that. So the first set I'm going to talk about here is we've got Tidus, we've got Machina, and we've got Paladin Cecil. Tidus is and Tidus I think was more of like a campaign one, so he's not necessarily guaranteed, and I think he just came back somewhat recently with the C90, right? So a lot of people might already have Tidus, but if you are someone that doesn't have Tidus and you want to pick him up, Tidus basically is a very speedy character. He gets lots of free turns, he can take a lot of turns, he has follow-ups, so he's really good for that sort of playstyle if you like that playstyle of characters that go fast. He has Unbreak in his kit, so he can kind of push the enemies back with breaking, things like that. So if you like that playstyle, Tidus could be an option. Machina, I'm a huge fan of Machina. You can see I've got my blue armor green from the first time he came around. Machina was the last character that came out before C90, so he just missed getting a C90. So they made him a very busted C80 character. Now, the way Machina was he was super dependent on the BT effect to be good, because all of his attacks were very mediocre, but if you had that BT buff up, it gave him a really good HP plus that was like a mil and a half damage per swing, which for when he came out was ridiculous. He was like the first of the Millionaire Club that could do that kind of damage. Now, he's going to come back with this C90, and what this does is it makes Machina, the rest of his kit, a lot more relevant. He isn't as dependent on that BT effect. He still will put up like stupid, ridiculous BT faces, especially now if you're doing it like during force time. I've seen videos of Machina doing like 10 mil per attack. Like, it's crazy. If you build it right and you do the right force time, right? So the way you want to think of Machina now is you're going to actually use more of his kit. His EX actually does really good damage now with his C90. And a lot of people forget that Machina actually has counters in his kit, because back when we were using him, you were just like going through like a ridiculous burst phase in garbage time and just killing the bosses basically in one burst phase. But Machina actually has counters, which are very good for like longer drawn out fights. So, and his counters do really good damage as well in this this new format here where you get C90 and we're in Shinryu and all that. He also has a lot of free actions and free turns he can take, so you can abuse characters like Kain with that. Tidus and Machina are two characters you can really abuse with Kain, who I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But if you're someone that's like a fan of Kain and his playstyle and doing that off-turn damage, that definitely could be an option for you there, right? So Machina, I do still recommend, though, if you're going to go for Machina, I do still recommend full investment. Like, if you're not going to green him, you're not going to get as much out of him. Green is really important for Machina because you really want... Because the way you get the big damage out of Machina in the burst phase is you want to have his burst effect up going into his own burst phase. And in order to do that, he has to be green, because you have to be able to do his normal burst attack first, then go into burst phase, and then abuse that during force time. That's really the way I'm going to use Machina. So the one thing to steer clear of is if you don't have the resources and you don't want to go all in on Machina, I don't think you should pick him up. You still should go all in on him if you're going to get him. Whereas Tidus, on the other hand, Tidus, you could get away with just a regular BT without a green, and he's still pretty solid, right? Now, Paladin Cecil, he's an interesting one. It has been a hot minute since Paladin Cecil has come back and been relevant. The thing was when he last dropped with his LD, he was like the best character in the game. He was like the Garnet of that era. He was like the best Aura bot support character, Holy Enchant, Holy Imperil. He had healing, just a fantastic unit, right? I would say in this iteration, like, he's definitely good, and if you like him, definitely grab him, but he's not like the as meta relevant as he was back then. Like, back then it was like you needed Paladin Cecil if you really wanted to stomp the game and make it easy. Basically his numbers get upped. He does get a nice rework with this, so if you like Paladin Cecil, definitely pick him up. If you want like a good solid support character, healing, if you're missing Holy in your team, in your box, you definitely could pick him up, right? He's definitely an option, but he isn't like a must pick or anything like that, like he would have been back in the day, right? Okay, next set here we've got Kain, Warrior of Light, Inject. So the big thing with Kain is dropping very, very soon, like after this video. So like I'm recording this on Sunday, and literally we're going to have the community stream on Monday, and I think Kain drops on Tuesday. So he's coming like basically 3 days after I recorded this video. I'm probably going to put this video up the day after I record it. So by the time you're seeing this video, Kain is like a day or two away. He's dropping very, very soon. The thing with Kain is he is the first like Force BT character, right? So my recommendation is if you want to start off Shinryu with a good solid Force character and you want to have Force abilities right off the gate, then I do recommend going for Kain. The thing is you know, don't spend your BT tokens right away on Kain, because now you've got to summon, even if you've got Kain fully built with like LD, you still need to get the Force weapon, right? And you might be pulling for multiple dupes of the Force weapon depending on where your Power Stone stash is at. So definitely make sure you're done summoning on Kain's banner. So like if you summon, you're satisfied with your pulls, you got your Force weapon, whatever, and you don't have the BT, then I would say go ahead and drop the BT tokens if you want it. I'm actually in a situation where I am at 50 BT tokens, so I'm going to have to make a selection this month. Kain might be my selection. If I don't get the BT when I'm done pulling for the FR, then I am probably going to just token Kain and be done with it and save my gems. But it depends. If I get lucky and get the BT, I'll probably just BT token somebody else. We'll see. But Kain, for those of you unfamiliar with Kain, he's a range damage dealer. He has a little bit of launching in his kit. He can jump up in the air and do like that crazy off-turn damage like Freya does, except now since he's a BT Force character, his damage is going to be a lot better. So if you definitely like that playstyle, definitely go for it. If you're going to build, like if you have like range damage dealers, launchers, things like that, that helps build up Kain's Force gauge. So like Selfie's going to be a really good complement. Other range damage dealers that you might have, like maybe you've got Noctis. Tidus actually does some range damage, right? Maybe you really like King or a character like that. Cater, you know, any of those range damage dealers can work well. The thing with Kain in the Force gauge, you can use calls to set up launching too, and then launching can help buff the Force gauge that way. So it just depends on, once again, your place on what you like. I'm personally going for Kain because I want to jump into Shinryu with a good solid Force character like immediately. So that's going to be my take. So I'm going to recommend Kain to people, but it just depends. If you're someone that you've planned really well and you're very good at the game, like you don't have to have Force to beat the first couple of Shinryus, but eventually you're going to really want it because the HP pools are really, really high, and the Force time really like insanely cranks up the damage. So like as an example, Machina during a burst phase normally is doing like 1 to 1.5 mil per attack with that strong HP plus. But if you've got that Force gauge built up to like 400% or something ridiculous, he's literally doing like 7 to 10 million per attack. Like you just melt the bosses down, but they have such high HP pools that to meet turn count, eventually you're going to need to have that. So it just depends. Now there's another character on this list I'm going to talk about that I think some people are going to hold out for him as their first FR. So we'll get to that in a minute. Warrior of Light. Warrior of Light is one of always the best aging units in the game. He's a character that basically can do no wrong. His shields are so good, so potent. His LD effect is so good, basically just makes it so you can't take HP damage. There's people who even up until now can use Warrior of Light in really tough fights just to be like a shield, while the other characters do damage. So Warrior of Light is just a very solid pickup no matter what way you look at it. Now he's going to get a C90. He's going to have his green if you want to green him. Warrior of Light is actually someone I never picked up the BT for. So he's a potential that I might go in and toss that in. He's not like the craziest damage dealer, but man, he is just a crazy wall of a character, which is what he's meant to be. So if you really want a character to help protect your team, like Warrior of Light could be a really good pickup for that. Jecht, I'm definitely not going to recommend. I'm talking about him because he should be coming back this month. If you're a fan of Jecht, though, like definitely pick him up. Like he's going to do good damage. He is a fire enchant and parallel character. There aren't a crazy ton of like fire damage dealers in the game, so if you want like a really good fire, especially like fire melee, like that's very rare. I think it's just like him and Ignis might be the only fire melees in the game for like pure fire. There could be more, but yeah, Jecht, I would say, I would only recommend him if he's a favorite. He's a pretty generic damage dealer. Doesn't do like a ton for the party other than the fire imperil enchant. But other than that, I would recommend getting a generic support over somebody like Jecht. Okay. All right. Now this next set here, we're going to talk about some pretty big boppers here. So, Kam'lanaut is he's kind of the man of the month. And for those of you that aren't like in tune or haven't heard with the community, Kam'lanaut basically like breaks the game. He is a meta-defining character. He's a character that's going to make Shinryu a lot easier for you. So now you might be saying to yourself, all right, well, no brainer, I should get Cam, right? The thing is you can actually abuse Cam as a friend unit. He doesn't have to be on your party. So I won't go into too much, like I'm going to do a character guide on Cam when he drops, and I'll go into all the details, but he does like turn manipulation, he has paralyzing, does a lot of things that make the party do a lot of damage. He's just very busted, right? So here's the thing. I'm not a fan of Cam like as a character. Like I have no affiliation to his game, don't really care for the character design, whatever. Right now my plan is I'm probably not going to go for it pretty heavy, because here's the thing, with FR characters, it's a lot of investment, and I will do an FR guide at some point. I'm not sure, I might do it either. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a guide quick here before Kain drops, or I might wait till after where I can like demo it in game. I'll probably wait till I can demo it in game. But you really want to go full investment on these force boards for characters, and you're going to be limited on resources, right? So I do recommend that if you go for Cam and you want him in the party, you should go full investment. But you can get away with bringing Cam as a friend unit. So Cam is actually quite skippable as long as you know you've got Cams on your friend list. And what's going to happen is if you're even somewhat of a veteran player, you've got like, 150 to 200 friends on your list that are like solid players that have been playing, it's going to fill up with Cams like crazy, because he's like the best friend unit in the game. So like everybody's going to be throwing Cam out there. So it's really up to you, but Cam is ridiculous. If you're someone that's worried about him being available on the friends list, or if you actually kind of like the character design and you want to put him in party, he's fantastic in party. Like he's ridiculous. So Cam honestly is probably going to be like the number one recommendation I would have if you want him in the party. Just because, for meta purposes, right? If you want to stomp with meta, you want to make the game easier, Cam is going to make the game easier. So I'll just say that right now, okay? Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to throw out a few characters that are not on banners this month, but if you happen to have the LD, they are very good BTs still into Shinryu. So Garnet, I can't go 2 seconds without talking about Garnet. She is still, in my opinion, the best, if not one of the best in the game. Now, once we start getting more into force time and force weapons, like, yeah, someone like Cam is going to be a bigger priority than, say, Garnet, right? But Garnet, just the fact that she's basically will fit into any team comp, she's still going to make your party look ridiculous with her auras and what she does for the party. She's just a very good slot-in support, like a guaranteed slot for that. And support characters are just, to me, they're more valuable than DPS characters. DPS characters are a dime a dozen. They're always coming out with DPS characters, but like good supports, there are far less of them, and they are so important to team comps. Like I don't run any team comp without a dedicated support typically, unless the orb is dictating me to use other things. But I usually like having a full-on dedicated support. Garnet heals, she batteries a ton, she has insane auras, HP damage cap up, all that stuff that you want out of a support. She's got it. So Garnet, I'm going to highly, highly recommend. If you have the LD, or at the time this video goes up, she does still have a banner up. And I've been recommending to people on my Discord and like newer players, They're like, should I save for Force Era? Like, should I summon on these banners? Basically, what I'm telling people right now is if you're summoning for anything right now before Shinryu, you're only summoning for Garnet, and then otherwise you're saving your resources for Force characters, because that's going to be the future now. You're going to want Force weapons, you're going to want to be able to do the Force gauge, whatever. But Garnet is like 100% worth having well into Shinryu. So Garnet is a high recommendation from me. Zac is kind of like Warrior of Light in a way, where like he makes it very hard for your party to die. He's a very good defensive character, but he's got a lot of offense to back it up as well. So Zac to me is also just a very solid character you can bring, because there's going to be some very tough Shinryu fights that are going to ask for mitigation. They're going to be very aggressive with HP attacks. Someone like Zac can really protect you from that. Like, Zac and Warrior of Light, they would both fall into that category of like, if I'm really struggling on a Lufenia or a hard fight because the bosses are really aggressive, like they're my failsafe. Like, all right, I'll do another try, but I'm going to put Zac or Warrior of Light in to protect me, and then usually I can get through it, right? So Zac is very, very good there. A couple of other shout-outs I'll just make here really quick. Characters like Yuna or Ramza could still be very good pickups. And here's the thing, even if you're getting an older character that doesn't have an FR this month, they're going to get an FR at some point, so it also is like future-proofing. So if you really like Yuna, let's say you're a Final Fantasy X fan, you like Yuna, she's like, came out fairly recently with her C90, she's a very good support right now. She will tail off into Shinryu, but she's going to get a rework at some point. So that could be your failsafe, and you say, hey, I've got the burst now, I'm going to have her later on, and she's going to be good to go. Ramza, same reason, very, very good support character. Ramza is basically like the tier 2 of Garnet. Like, Garnet's tier 1, Ramza's tier 2, but he's right there with her. Garnet actually, some of his Ramza, some of his ores are actually better than Garnet's, actually. So, the thing with Ramza that's really nice too is he has launching, which helps Kain's force gauge. So that could be another reason to maybe go with Ramza, right? So Ramza and Yuna, those are older characters. They don't have banners currently, so you'd have to have the LDs all ready to go for them. So basically, to summarize, let me just kind of recap this. So to summarize, obviously, if there's a favorite character, even if it's, say, Terra or somebody that's maybe not as relevant right now. I mean, Terra's still solid, right? Like, multiple turn character has her C90, but even if it's a character that maybe isn't good right now, like Eldnarsh. Eldnarsh hasn't had an update in forever, right? So Eldnarsh basically isn't usable right now. But if, let's say, you really like Eldnarsh, he's got an FR coming, and let's say you just have your 50 tokens you want to use on a character you know you're going to use at some point, sure, you could go ahead and grab Eldnarsh, right? Also, with these BT token guides, if there's a character I didn't talk about that you want an opinion on, just hit me up in the comments. I'll let you know. I also have a Discord you can join with Dokkan Battle and DFFOO. So if you want to ask me questions in my Discord, feel free to join. I put it in all my descriptions. But let's go ahead and summarize my recommendations. So just to quickly summarize, I would say my number one recommendation this month for BT it would probably be like a tie between like Garnet and Cam. Cam is just... He's ridiculous. You'll see when he comes out. Like I said, I will do a guide on Cam, so if you want to wait until my guide comes out, like when Cam drops, I'll try to get the guide out like the night that Cam drops. But if you want to wait and see, he does crazy things. But once again, you can get away with the friend unit, right? So Cam and Garnet, between them two, I would say they're kind of like tied for my number one pick of what you should pick. My other high recommendation would be someone like, say, Kain. Just if you want a head start on Shinryu and you want that Force character right away, Kain is good, and Kain does have longevity. I believe JP players are still using him to this day, so you know he's going to have longevity for months. And the idea that he's going to be able to like jump up in the air and get off-turn damage, that's a very abusable effect that you can get away with for a long time. So Kain does have longevity, he's a good DPS character, and he's the first Force character, so for that reason, I would rank him pretty high on my list of characters to grab. I would say... if you want like a really crazy DPS, like Machina is still crazy. Like I love Machina and he's super crazy. And then maybe behind that would be like Tidus, Paladin and SSL characters like that. But any of these characters are fine pickups. I just really can't recommend Jekt too much, unless you're a big fan of him. He's a lot more niche, but if you like Jekt a lot, like he is going to do good damage, right? But he's just more generic. Machina is kind of the same way where he's generic, but he's got counters, he's got free turns, and his damage is just, it's insane. He's just got very, very good damage. So anyways, guys, there you go. That's my BT guide for the month of July. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.